Hello everybody, welcome to Tactica Imperialis and to today's video. Today is episode 9 for A Town Called Mallus, my Warhammer Age of Sigmar hobby project for my Stormcast Eternals. In today's episode we have 3 units to look at. I know we've done 2 the last couple of parts, but today you're getting a triple header. Might be quite long, but then again the last part was 45 minutes if you're watching the English version. So yeah, it's just the way things are going right now. So, 2 of the units that we're going to be discussing today are units that you might have expected me to want to talk about from both last part and from the battle report that came out last week. If you missed the last episode, then the plays will be in the description as always, as will the battle report from last week if you wish to see it and do not wish to be spoiled, because I will be discussing elements of it in this video. It's kind of unavoidable. But both of the 2 units for that I want to discuss, and they're going to be hero units. However, the 3rd unit is something that you've not seen at all in terms of battle reports or after action. And it's just something I've had just ticking over in the background that I want to discuss because it has a few things that actually quite well apply to using this 2nd hero to his maximum. But we'll get to that a little bit later on. As always, if you wish to check out the French version of this, then it will be out tomorrow at the usual time. And I'll always look forward to getting involved with you guys in the comments discussing rules and paint scheme and things like that. So make sure to leave a comment because that is always appreciated. I don't think there's much more to say here because, well, I've introduced everything you need to know and all the other stuff if you want to get caught up is in the description. So, without any further ado, we'll get started on the first of our heroes. We're going to do the unit and the 2nd hero together. So we'll get on to the first of our heroes, the smaller and perhaps the one you'd expect me to want in the army a lot more. So, we'll get started now. This is episode 9 for A Town Called Mallus. Here we go. So, here is the first unit that we're adding today, and it is Neave Blacktalon. Oh, Neave Blacktalon is... I have mixed feelings about Neave Blacktalon. I'll be honest with you folks. I have very mixed feelings. On the one hand, Neave Blacktalon is a fantastic model. I mean, the pose is extremely dynamic, and it just looks really, really well done. It's just a really, really nice pose. However, I don't think it fits my scheme very well. I don't know why, but perhaps of all the models I've painted, Neave is amongst my least favourites. And I don't really have a justification for it. I'm just not as happy with her relative to some of the other models that I have come into possession of over the several months I've been doing this project. I don't know. I can't put my finger on it. Maybe it's the helmet. I definitely think that bareheaded Neave looks better than helmeted Neave, but I can't paint flesh. I don't have flesh paints with me, so I wasn't going to do that. And if I got another Neave Blacktalon, I'd definitely be looking into doing a head swap to see what I could do. But here's what we have regardless. So she is armed with her whirlwind axes, some very powerful melee weapons. She's got a boltstorm pistol. Don't know what that was. She's got a boltstorm pistol just at her side and the ammo pack for it there. Over on the other side, there's actually nothing on her waist. You just have her cloak with its extra little markings, and she's got this crest at the back. She's got the typical Vanguard Chambers shoulder pads, and she's looking pretty cool. Like I say, not my favourite, but that might just be the fact that this paint scheme doesn't cooperate very well with Miss Neave Blacktalon. Now, on the table, Neave costs 120 points, which makes her pretty much the joint most expensive infantry Stormcast hero that there is. She's more expensive than Lord-Celestant, than Knight Questors and Gabriel Shoreheart, the Knight Heraldor, the Knight Venator, although he's not really infantry, and there might be one other that's 120 points, but for the most part, Stormcast heroes are 100. So she is expensive by the standards of heroes. However, she is reasonably well statted. She's got a decent move. She's got 6 wounds and a 3-up save. So she's at least on par with the other Stormcast heroes, if not tougher. So I know she's got 2 more wounds than a Lord-Relictor, for example. However, her main trickery comes in her actual speed, for she has a rule called Wind Rider. What this does is when a unit nearby, if I remember correctly, it's within 6, uses the Ride the Wind's Etheric ability. Etheric? Regardless of pronunciation. When a Gryph Charger unit does its big teleport move, basically, she can follow it. So the cavalry unit will move 6d6 inches in a straight line, and Neave can make exactly the same move as long as she finishes within 6 inches of the cavalry unit and not within 3 inches of enemies. However, she may not run or charge after making this maneuver. This means that Neave is extremely maneuverable, and given her lore as an assassin character, it allows her to reposition at the drop of a hat very, very quickly, as long as you have Vanguard Paladors or Lord Aquilors around to teleport her, or you have a Lord-Relictor using Lightning Chariot Prayer, because that is a teleport ability too, though it's probably not half as powerful as Wind Rider because it's only up to 24 inches. The Relictor has to be stood next to Neave in the hero phase for it to happen, which is probably not going to be somewhere you want your Relictor to be that far forward, and so on and so forth. And she'll also have Silence of the Storm because she is a Stormcast. She is a Stormcast Eternal after all. Her Bolt Storm pistol is the same as everybody else's. 2 shots, hits on 3s, wounds on 4s. No rend, damage 1, nothing special. However, it's the whirlwind axes that make Neave utterly terrifying. She has 7 attacks that hit on 3s and wound on 3s and have a rend of 1 and a damage of 1. And you might think, okay, she's got a lot of attacks. She's really good against infantry. This is backed up by another of her abilities that allows her to get additional attacks. I believe it's on a 6 to hit. So she can really, really pour on buckets upon buckets upon buckets of attacks. But 3s and 3s, rend 1, damage 1. Oh sure, that'll work against basic infantry, right? It's not going to do that much against big stuff. And you're right, because against monsters, it's all right. It's chip damage. You might get 2 wounds through, maybe 3 or 4 if you get very, very lucky, or it's a low save monster. However, Neave is an assassin after all. She is a Knight Zephyros, the only Knight Zephyros we know of, and that means that against a hero, her attacks are damage 2. This girl, against a hero, gets 7, plus however many extra she generates, attacks that are 3s and 3s, rend 1, damage 2 versus heroes. There are not many heroes that are not also monsters that can survive that without having spells or other ignore abilities in play. I mean, take your bog standard hero with like a 4+ save and 5 wounds. That's sort of a bog standard hero. I think maybe, okay, let's go with 6. All right, let's go with 6. 6 wounds and a 4+ save. That's a pretty average hero. He has to fail 3 saves to be killed by Neave. So that means 6 wounds have to be scored, which probably means Neave needs to be hitting 9 times. Okay, Neave probably can't one-shot a standard general in a single round. It would be a bit of a stretch. And that's actually I only accounted for rend in that calculation. Yeah, Neave could probably one-shot your average general, assuming there are no buffs in play. However, against lighter armoured heroes, or those with, shall we say, feebler stats because they're not combat generals, a la wizards, priests, and other summoners and the like, banner bearers, for example, Neave can absolutely tear them apart because they're usually flimsier than their frontline counterparts with not as many or a similar amount of wounds, and Neave can teleport right behind them, thanks to Wind Rider. This is really, really powerful. Obviously, she can't charge on the turn she uses Wind Rider, because that would be utterly obscene, and it's the same reason why Paladors can't do it, but still, very, very nasty, and if you set her up correctly, hopefully with the plan for double turn, you can use her to great effect to pick off isolated or otherwise flimsy heroes. This was the plan in the battle report, where I actually utilized this ability to cover a huge amount of distance in one go, but I didn't get double turn, and my opponent was then able to isolate and kill Neave through shenanigans. Admittedly, I did some bad positioning. I should have put Neave in some terrain when I did that, and that is something I would advise you do as well. If you can get Neave into terrain, her save goes up to a 2+. It ain't much shift in her aside from mortal wounds, which Stormcast historically struggle with, or high rend attacks and or multiple damage attacks with a little bit of rend. Seriously, she's not easy to kill once you get her set up. So if you can, use Windrider, get her into some terrain, and then if you do get double turn perfect, dash out of the terrain and smack something in the face. If you don't, you can probably survive it, but you might have to teleport again because your opponent will realize, ah dear, the assassin is right near me, I'm going to back my heroes away. It's up to you. She also has the Tireless Hunter ability that Vanguard Hunters have that allows her to run and shoot in the same turn, which will help for covering distance, though of course you still can't run and charge because, well, obviously you can't, because that would just be silly to be able to run, shoot and charge in the same turn, basic with no other abilities on her. And yeah, she is a bit of a monster if you can get her onto the right target, but that in turn requires a little bit of careful planning. So Neave is, as described, I think, on Warhammer Community or on the Age of Sigmar Facebook page, a scalpel as opposed to the typical Stormcast hammer. She is a precision tool and has to be wielded as such. You can use her to chunk through infantry, but that's not her calling. Her calling is taking a hero and making a mess out of them. Ideally a hero that's also been chipped down, because otherwise she might not have enough damage output to get through all the wounds in one go, and at that point she is able to be picked off. So there are things to consider when using Neave, but she is powerful in any event. So this girl will be seeing a lot of use, mainly because she fits in really well with the Vanguard Chamber, and I kind of can't take her unless I have Paladors and my Lord of Keylords in the army, so it's kind of a given. Will she be sort of a complete, what's the word I'm looking for? Like an auto take? A unit that as soon as I'm planning the army out, I'm taking this, and Neave is in that list of this. I don't know. I need more practice with her, because if you can use her correctly, she can be really, really powerful and probably is something of an auto take for a Vanguard Chamber player. However, if you're not very good at using her, or you're not taking the cavalry, she's probably a sort of a nice to have, or actually a point sink if you don't have the abilities to sync with her correctly. I mean, you can keep her hidden in your lines, but with the way that characters can be singled out by magic and shooting in this game, it's not as easy to keep her hidden unless you can actually keep her hidden. Also, side point, with Malimportance requiring that you have a hero within range to do stuff with the prophecies, it could be useful to have Neave teleport up the board just so you can use your prophecy points to do shenanigans. This is what I did with Neave, actually. I used her as a interpreter to do shenanigans with the prophecy points when I had the chance. It was sort of an aside and a nice to have. It's not something you could actually plan around. You have to use Neave to her full effectiveness, and it isn't that, but it's something you can consider. Only other thing I would say is she can get killed quite easily if you don't play her correctly or she gets isolated. So either have a healer on hand, maybe, shall we say, a Lord-Celestant, a Lord Relictor, or something, just to help keep her going, because otherwise she can get whittled down very quickly because she is very forward in the way she plays the game, unless you're keeping her hidden in your lines. Anyway, that is Neave Blacktalon. Now let's move on to the other hero and to the unit that, well, it doesn't go with him, sort of makes him that much nastier if played in a particularly naughty way. So let's get to that. And units number 2 and 3, which I can't quite fit on the screen, is Vander's Hammerhand but not, and Gryph-hounds. On the screen there are, well, 6 Gryph-hounds. So there you go. Down here there are 6 Gryph-hounds in various combinations. I'll get to them in a bit. But up here we have Mr. Vandus Hammerhand. Well, it's the model of Vandus Hammerhand, but it's not exactly Vandus Hammerhand. You see, the astute amongst you might have noticed that shadow and see at the top of the screen that that weapon is not the typical weapon of Vandus Hammerhand. Vandus Hammerhand is armed with a Tempestos hammer, which is a pretty powerful weapon. It's got 3 attacks, it hits on 3s, it wounds on 2s, it has 1 rend, and it deals D3 damage, and on top of that, you get D3 additional attacks on the turn you charge. So why didn't I take that, I'm hearing you ask, I'm sure. Well, what I've taken instead is the Thunder Axe. This is the Thunder Axe, the special weapon from the Dracoth Cavalry kit. It's designed for the Lord-Celestant on Dracoth. You can make out of that kit. I've just applied it here. It was a very, very, very easy swap. It was literally a perfect fit. There was no conversion or chopping or anything needed to make it happen. It just happened. The Thunder Axe, I know I should normally talk about the model first, but I want to talk about this tactics thing, is also 3 attacks with a 2-inch reach, hitting on 3s, wounding on 3s with 1 rend and 2 damage. So it's slightly worse to wound, and it's more consistent at damage 2 versus D3, but add 1 to the attacks of this model's Thunder Axe for each other Stormcast Eternal unit from your army within 5 inches. Oh bloody hell. If you build this guy with a block of units around him, he can be throwing 5, 6, 7 attacks or more at once, at damage 2. Now, those stats, I should point out, are Neave Blacktalon versus a hero. That's how hard he hits, just he has half as many attacks as Neave. So, yeah, he hits bloody hard, and if you can stack him up with a few units around him, oh my god, this man hits like a brick. Add that to the Dracoth, which also does 3 attacks, 3s and 3s, rend 1, damage 1, that can become D6, because, you know, that's how Dracoths work, and this guy's damage output, on top of the Storm Breath attack, which I haven't even mentioned yet, which is a 12-inch range shooting attack. Roll a dice for each unit within 2 inches of that point that you choose within 12 inches, and every unit within that 2 inches takes a D3 mortal wounds on a 4+. This guy has ludicrous damage output. Absolutely ludicrous for 220 points. And if you think he can't take a hit, then think again, oh dear sir. You might notice he's carrying a shield, which is also a slight modification on Vandus Hammerhand. That is the Sigmar Thunder Shield, also found on Gavriel Shoreheart. What does that do? You reroll save rolls of 1, and if you pass the reroll, then the unit... not the unit, every enemy unit in 3 inches takes a mortal wound, and your save is a 3+, and you're re-rolling 1s. So you pass 2/3 of your saves, and you pass 2/3 of 1/6 of half of your fails, so 1/3 of your fails deal mortal wounds to your enemy. Good God, this man hits really, really hard. Now, the other options, I should go through those. You have the Lightning Hammer, which is just a bad Tempestos hammer, which is 3 attacks, 3s and 3s, round 1 damage 2, and on a 6 you do 2 mortal wounds before you make the wound roll, so that's on top. It's not bad, it's the same weapon as Concussors have. I actually didn't have a spare one, so I couldn't make that even if I wanted to. You then have the Storm Strike Glaive, which has 4 attacks, but 3s and 4s with 1 rend and damage 1, but on the turn you charge, it is damage 3 with a rend of 2, which again is pretty damn good. Every single weapon configuration for this guy is good, but I wanted the Thunder Axe because 1, I had that going spare from the Lord-Celestant kit, from the Dracothian Guard kit, and 2, I don't know, I just really like the look of it. I've actually used a glaive elsewhere. For those of you who keep up with my live streams, you'll know this, and I didn't have a spare hammer, so there you go. Honestly, you can make a case for every single weapon on this list. The Lightning Hammer is the most consistent damage output weapon, although not really, because the Thunder Axe is actually as good as it, except you don't get the 2 mortal wound thing. Its base damage is exactly the same, it just has further reach, which may or may not be relevant. So the Lightning Hammer is probably the most consistent, although you could argue that's instead the Tempestos hammer. The Thunder Axe is good if you build the army around it, and the Storm Strike Glaive relies on you getting a charge, which you don't always get, so I didn't want to do that. Yeah. Just yeah. Now, let's take a look at the model itself. And it's done in the classic scheme, so standard stuff, although the Dracoth, is it? Yeah, it's skink blue again. So it's the same paint scheme as I use on my other Dracoths, staggered on scale green, with a skink blue highlight, dry brush thing. Although I think I did a wash of Nuln oil before I did the dry brush, rather than doing staggered on scale, Coelia green shade, as I've done in the past. Some of the darker, fleshier bits were done in Cantor blue, such as the edge of the tail. I'm not sure how well that's showing up. And it's also Cantor blue that I used to line his cloak. If I turn him around, you can see, again, it's exactly the same. It's just a typical kit, so it's literally just a swap of the weapon top up here. We've got his rock, got the details on here. It's red fabric. The outer cloak is in red because that ties in with the army and with my Dracothian guard. The inner lining of the cloak is blue. I think I have a reason for that. Does it match up with something? I think it matches up with something. But I have my reasons. And then up top, you have his shoulder pad, which is actually partly attached to the hair, so doing head swaps with this guy is a pain. So don't try. You have his shield, which is painted typical Sons of Mallus purple. And then you have all the gold in the world. Now, I was talking earlier about Neave and how I wasn't that keen on her in the paint scheme for this army. This guy is the exact opposite. I was just working on him, just quietly, just getting on with it, not that fussed. And then I put the gold on, and just like with Gavriel Shawheart, when I put the gold on, I just realised how amazing this model is. It looked amazing. The transformation when you add the gold is really, really good. And it's something that I can't really describe because I don't vlog every step, but it looks so good when you put the first gold base coat on and then you wash it. And I've actually used Sigmar here, so it's dry brushed instead of auric armor, but that's kind of neither here nor there. But I really like this model in this paint scheme. I really, really, really do. Honestly, it's one of my favourite models in this paint scheme. And honestly, Dracoths look so good with this scheme because you don't have them dominated by gold. It's not just too much gold. That's the problem I've always had with the classic Stormcast scheme, is it's just too much gold, damn it. So yeah, there you go. That is my Lord-Celestant on Dracoth. He also has a command ability, which is if you use it until your next hero phase, you do not have to take battle shot tests for this model or any friendly Stormcast Eternals within 24 inches. If you're about to take an absolute pummeling from magic or melee or both, then this is a great defense mechanism to stop the last bits of your units running off. Admittedly, I'll only use this in combination with Consummate Commander if I'm not taking my second Lord Aquilo, because I need my first Lord Aquilo to do all his teleporty stuff. So yeah. Now, you might be wondering why I brought Gryph-hounds. I'm going to bring the Gryph-hounds back in front of Mr. I haven't actually got a name for him yet, so give me Roman-themed names in the comments, and we'll see what we can do. So, here are some... Hang on, camera up. There we go. Here are some Gryph-hounds. I got 12 of these in the Vanguard Brotherhood box set, and here you can see 2 alphas and 4 regular guys. They're a wide variety of painting. I'm just going to... Yep, I can just shift it ever so slightly to the left. You can see there's quite a broad variety of paintings, and no two, I think, are exactly alike. As in, there are no 2 models that are the same pose, body, feather colour. So, same pose, same body colour, same feather colour, and same head. Because you only get 3 body types and 4 heads, including the alpha. You might get 5 including the alpha and 4 excluding, but you don't get a huge amount of options, and you can just about make everyone in this set unique. But I've just done a mixed bag of them here, so one of my favourites, I think, is this guy here. You go over here. This guy right here, he's got a leaping pose, he's got a red body, staggered on scale green feathering. I quite like that one. This guy here, same feathering, but with a blue body. He's one of my alphas. It's just a real mixed bag. This is half of them, as I said. And they're a real mixed bag. I'm just going to have you point in this direction, you point in this direction. I don't know why I'm doing such aesthetically silly things, but I am, because I can. Now, why are Gryph-hounds so relevant to this man, to this guy here? What does this have to do with this? Well, Gryph-hounds can be taken in units of 1. Does that answer your question? If you surround this guy or have a few, just like knocking about Gryph-hounds near this guy, you can crank his attacks up to utterly busted levels of powerful. You can really crank his attacks up, and that's really, really useful. I mean, he doesn't need any more than +1 or +2 to be a very, very powerful hero. But if you can get him +4 off Gryph-hounds and stuff, that is really powerful. Obviously, it will depend on how you deploy and how you want him to work. He's move 10, and the hounds are move... I think they're move 8. Hang on. Where are they? Gryph-hounds. They're in here somewhere. I know they are. Hang on. Gryph-hounds, they're move 9. So they're ever so slightly slower. But they're not really. It's kind of no big deal. You know Gryph-hounds? Oh, that's if it has. Right, sorry. I was misreading the unit entry there. So these guys are move 9, he's move 10, and you can stick him with Dracoth Cavalry. So you stick him with Dracoth Cavalry, he's got 4 attacks. You stick him with Dracoth Cavalry and 2 fast-moving Gryph-hounds with him, he's got 6. And that is where it gets very, very silly. The Gryph-hounds themselves are kind of good, but not great. They have 2 attacks that hit on 3s, wound on 4s with no rend, and damage 1 in melee. If they have 3 or more models in the unit, then they can have an alpha, that's this guy right here, and they make 3 attacks. Big deal. They also have 4 attacks instead of 2 if the target unit is near a Lord-Celestant. That's a hero that we haven't got in the army yet. The Lord-Celestant is the dude with the lantern. The other way to buff Gryph-hounds is through the Lord-Veritant, but that's only his Gryph-hound. The Lord-Celestant buffs all Gryph-hounds that are near him in melee, so that is an option, but that won't work in combination with my Celestant. And if Gryph-hounds are in melee, after they attack, you roll the dice and move each model in the d6. You basically have a free disengage of d6 inches. You don't have to disengage. You can stay in the combat. You are forced to roll the dice, but it says move up to that many. So you could just say, okay, I'm just going to move them 1, just to reshuffle a bit, or 6, and I'll just reshuffle the order so that my alpha gets in. So you are very easy to get in and out of combat, get forward onto objectives, or off onto objectives if you want to do so. And what is also quite useful is if an enemy unit is set up within 10 inches of a Gryph-hound unit, i.e. it arrives by teleportation or by outflanking or is summoned near to Gryph-hounds, any units within 2d6 inches of the Gryph-hounds can attack with one of its weapons as though it were your shooting phase. So what you can do is set Gryph-hounds up on your flanks or near to a fire base that you might have of, say, Vanguard Raptors or Judicators or even Dracoth Cavalry because they have their Storm Breath attack. And you can say, right, if you want to summon units in my way, I'm going to shoot you immediately. If you want to arrive near me to try and charge me, I'm going to shoot you immediately. And that is going to do a lot of damage to you if you deploy correctly. That is very, very nice and useful. However, there is a drawback. The Lord-Celestant on Dracoth costs 220 points, which is actually really good value. The Gryph-hounds, unfortunately, not so much. They cost 40 points per model. 40. That is 2 Liberators. That's a Paladin. Alright? That's a Paladin or a Gryph-hound. And the Gryph-hounds, by the way, have 3 wounds and no armor save whatsoever, so they're quite easy to kill if your opponent knows what they're doing. So, would you rather have a Paladin? Or would you rather have a Gryph-hound? Would you rather have 2 Liberators? Or would you like a Gryph-hound? Would you like, I don't know, 3 Vanguard Paladors? Or would you like 5 Gryph-hounds? You see the problem with the mathematics here. If these guys were 30 points a model, then okay, because you can compare these guys to Flesh Hounds, to Dire Wolves, Is there any others that spring to mind that are kind of like that? I can't think of any like other beast units off the top of my head. I know I should be able to think of more, but I can't right now. So direwolves and fleshhounds come to mind. And in the value ratios, they probably do lose. They don't hit that much harder, if they hit any harder at all. They just have more synergistic abilities, but they're then easier to kill to get rid of those synergistic abilities. So they have a place if you can use them correctly, but it's not ideal. So how I'll probably use my Gryph-hounds, if I use them at all, is alongside my Celestant to buff his attacks, alongside a Lord-Castellan to buff their attacks if I get one, or just sprinkled throughout my firebase. I don't know what I'm doing with my hands right now. It's kind of like a mimicry of that stupid salt thing. Just sprinkle them through my lines as just like summoning deterrents. So I could take them to a tournament. Let's just say I did a tournament. Take them to a tournament, just take 4 Gryph-hounds, just dot them around my line, and if my opponent summons anything, bang, I get to shoot it with Vanguard Raptors, bang, I get to shoot it with Dracoths, bang, I get to shoot it with Judicators. You see what I'm doing? I can use them as deterrents, which is very, very nice. And it's something you can also do with Ether Wings, but it's not the same way. Ether Wings are a charge deterrent, as opposed to a setup deterrent. So they are very useful. You've just got to use them correctly and be aware of how much they cost. But anyway, I digress. I'm going to go back up to the much cooler looking model as we close out the episode. So that is the end of episode 9 of A Town Called Mallus, my Warhammer Age of Sigmar hobby project. Do let me know what you think of the models in the comments below. Did I make the right choice with my Lord-Celestant's weapon? Am I being a bit harsh on Neave Blacktalon's appearance because I don't know, I just don't think it fits the paint scheme? Am I overselling the hype of Gryph-hounds or the Lord-Celestant? Probably, I did get a bit carried away. But anyway, just give me your thoughts in the comments below. And remember, next part is episode 10. Now, I'm not sure quite what I'm going to show you in episode 10. I've got a rough idea. But for episode 10, I'm not sure if I can do anything special. I've already done that rep. And I'm kind of busy at the moment. So anyway, join us in 2 weeks and we'll have the 10th part of this project. And maybe we'll be having a little bit of a look forward to the future as well. Because there's something going on in the realm of shadow that's rather caught my interest. So, thank you all for watching. This has been Tactica Imperialis, and I'll see you all next time. Thank you very much, and goodbye.